All right, buckle up, everyone, for a deep dive that's going to turn your whole idea of success and failure upside down.
Yeah, get ready to ditch those motivational posters.
Exactly. We're going deep with an article called O Sucesso e o Fracasso, uma análise além da superficialidade.
That's Success and Failure. An analysis beyond superficiality, if you don't speak Portuguese.
Right, and it's by Pereira, who's basically a legend in the fields of neuroscience, quantum physics.
And positive psychology, no less.
Yeah, she spent like over 40 years mentoring and consulting, so we're talking serious wisdom here.
We are. And, it's funny, so many of us are chasing success, right? But the path is rarely a straight line.
It's true. There are twists and turns, roadblocks, detours.
Sometimes I feel like you're running in circles.
Definitely. And that's actually where Pereira starts with this idea of the syndrome de Sisypho.
The Sisyphus Syndrome.
Yeah, like that myth of Sisyphus pushing the boulder uphill eternally, no real progress.
Endless effort, zero reward.
Oof. Yeah, I think we've all felt that at some point.
I know I have. So the question is, how do we know if we're stuck in that Sisyphus syndrome?
Right. Because working hard is one thing, but what if you're on the wrong hill altogether?
Exactly. Pereira gives this example of a startup that fails, not from lack of passion or hard work.
But just because, nobody actually needed what they were building?
Exactly. In fact, CB Insights did a study, found that lack of market need was like the top reason for startup failure.
So it's that feeling of, I did all the right things, but it still didn't work.
Yep.
And that's got to be crushing because you start to doubt yourself, your abilities.
For sure. And it's not just startups either, right? This applies to careers, relationships, you name it.
I'd say pretty much any area of life.
Totally. Like imagine someone stuck in a job that's just soul-crushing, no room for growth.
They might be competent, hardworking, but the environment itself is holding them back.
Absolutely. So that feeling of going nowhere, despite all your effort, that's a red flag.
A sign you might be in a Sisyphus Syndrome situation. So how do we break free? It can't just be work harder or we're just a more efficient Sisyphus.
Exactly. We need to change our mindset even.
And that's where neuroscience comes in, right? I know Pereira talks about the brain's amazing ability to adapt.
Neuroplasticity, yeah. It's like we're not stuck with a fixed set of abilities or behaviors.
So we can actually rewire our brains for success.
That's the idea. Through repeated effort and, crucially, the right mindset, we can change those neural pathways.
Okay, that sounds amazing, but how do we actually do that rewiring?
Think of it like learning a new skill, like playing an instrument or speaking a new language.
So it takes practice and dedication.
Exactly. And a good example is emotional intelligence.
Ah, right. Being able to manage our emotions, especially when things get tough.
Studies show that people who can handle setbacks well, they're more likely to break free from that Sisyphus trap.
Because they can bounce back, learn from their mistakes, and adjust their approach.
Precisely. It's not just about willpower, it's about skill power.
Skill power. I like that. But what about those external factors? Sometimes no amount of effort seems enough.
You're hitting on a crucial point. The context matters. Pereira argues we can't just focus on individual effort.
We have to consider the environment, resources, our starting point.
All of it.
So someone born into wealth has a different starting line than someone who had to overcome huge obstacles to get in the race.
Exactly. And then you have factors like economic conditions, access to education, even just luck.
Being in the right place at the right time.
Pereira actually uses this term, sucesso comprado, meaning bought success.
So sometimes it's not about how hard you work, but about the advantages or disadvantages you were born with.
It's a reality check, right?
It definitely challenges that whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality.
It does. And it leads to Pereira's call for a more holistic analysis of success and failure.
One that goes beyond just the individual and looks at the bigger picture.
Exactly. And that's where it gets really interesting as we delve into her specific examples and case studies.
All right, I'm ready to dive into those cases. Bring on the real-world examples.
Okay, so one of the case studies Pereira talks about is this entrepreneur who was like super passionate.
Pouring their heart and soul into their venture.
Totally. But they kept hitting these roadblocks, like over and over.
And what was the issue? Lack of resources, bad timing?
Turns out their emotional intelligence was, well, not their strong suit.
Ah, so they couldn't handle the pressure, the inevitable ups and downs of starting a business?
Right. They couldn't take criticism, struggled to adapt.
Kept making the same mistakes, classic Sisyphus syndrome,
Exactly. They were so fixated on that boulder.
that they didn't stop to think, hey, maybe I need a different boulder or even a different mountain.
Right. So then she talks about this other case, someone who inherited a successful business.
The bot success scenario.
Yeah, from the outside, they had it all. Money, status.
But I'm guessing there was a catch.
Totally. They lacked that sense of fulfillment,
That deep satisfaction that comes from building something yourself.
Exactly. Like, sure, they had success, but it felt empty.
It's like there's a hidden cost to that kind of easy success.
Right. And it makes you think, what's the point of all this striving if it doesn't bring you joy?
Okay, but how does that fit with the idea that inherited wealth is a starting point advantage?
It's a good question, and it gets to the heart of what Pereira is trying to do, challenge our assumptions.
So she's not saying hard work doesn't matter.
Not at all. Or that everyone born into privilege is just coasting through life.
Right, it's more nuanced than that.
Much more.
So it's not this black and white thing, success or failure, but a spectrum.
Exactly. It's about understanding all these different factors that influence someone's journey.
The effort, the context, the starting point, it all plays a role.
Absolutely. And then Pereira brings up another case, this highly skilled professional,
Super competent, driven.
but stuck in this soul-crushing bureaucratic job.
So even though they had the talent and the work ethic, the environment itself was holding them back.
Exactly. And that's a reminder that sometimes success isn't about reaching the highest peak.
But about finding the right mountain to climb in the first place.
I love that analogy.
It makes me think about that whole follow your passion advice, which sounds great in theory.
Right. But what if the system you're in just doesn't support your passion?
Or what if you don't have the resources to even pursue it?
Exactly. And Pereira doesn't shy away from those tough questions. She wants us to look at the systemic factors.
The socioeconomic conditions that can impact our chances.
Remember that CBRE data. Financial difficulties are a huge reason for business failure.
Especially when you add things like excessive bureaucracy, unfair competition.
It's like some people are starting that uphill climb with a boulder that's twice as heavy.
Right, but then how do we balance that acknowledgement with personal responsibility?
That's the key, finding that balance. Pereira uses this analogy of a plant.
Okay, I'm listening.
You can give it all the sunlight and water in the world, but if the soil is bad...
It's not going to thrive.
Exactly. The environment, the context, can either nurture or limit our potential.
So regardless of how much effort we put in, the circumstances matter.
Absolutely. And that's where Pereira's insights from neuroscience come back in.
Okay, bring on the brain science.
She's saying that even in tough situations, we have this capacity to rewire our brains, adapt our strategies.
So we can find ways to thrive, even when the odds are stacked against us.
That's the idea. And one of the most powerful tools we have, she says, is emotional intelligence.
Right, being able to manage our own emotions, but also understand the emotions of others.
Empathy, compassion, building genuine connections.
And the cool thing is, those are skills. We can learn them.
Exactly, like any other skill.
Yeah.
And imagine the impact if we all started cultivating emotional intelligence.
So we're not just improving our own chances of success, but also creating a more supportive world for everyone.
That's the vision. Imagine workplaces, schools, even politics, all operating with more empathy and understanding.
Wow, that's a world I want to live in.
Please.
Okay, but even with all this talk about rewiring and adapting, isn't there a risk we get too focused on success?
That we lose sight of what truly matters.
Yeah, like what if we achieve all these external goals, but we're still unhappy?
That's such a crucial point, and I think Pereira would agree. She's not advocating for relentless achievement at any cost.
She's actually reframing our whole idea of failure.
Exactly. She wants us to see it differently.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How does she redefine failure? Because, let's be honest, nobody likes to fail.
True, but what if failure wasn't the opposite of success? What if it was a stepping stone?
So it's not about avoiding failure, but about learning from it, becoming more resilient.
Precisely. And that's where emotional intelligence comes in again. Those who can handle setbacks, they see failure as feedback.
Not as a personal attack.
Right. They can analyze what went wrong, adjust their approach, come back stronger.
Instead of getting stuck in that Sisyphus loop.
Exactly. Failure becomes this opportunity to course correct, reassess, maybe even discover a whole new path.
A path that might be even better than the one you were on before.
Sometimes the detours lead to the most amazing destinations.
So we've talked about effort, context, emotional intelligence, and even reframing failure.
It's like we're building this whole new framework for understanding success.
And it goes way beyond those oversimplified motivational slogans.
It's about real life with all its complexities.
This has been so insightful, but I gotta ask, what about those of us still struggling to define success?
Like, what does it even mean for me?
Exactly. Is there a formula?
Well, Pereira doesn't give us a magic formula, but she does offer some powerful questions.
Okay, let's hear those questions. I'm ready for some deep introspection. Okay, so back to this idea of rewiring our brains for success, but also like redefining what success even means.
Right, because it's not just about individual achievement, it's bigger than that.
It's about how we show up in the world.
Exactly. And what's so cool here is that Pereira connects personal growth to societal progress.
Okay, I'm listening. Tell me more.
So imagine if everyone started cultivating emotional intelligence, like really working on it.
Becoming more self-aware, empathetic.
Better at managing emotions, all of it.
And what? That creates a ripple effect.
That's the idea. Think about it. If more people approach challenges with emotional intelligence,
It would change everything.
it could transform workplaces, schools, even politics,
We could actually start working together, solving problems.
instead of just, fighting all the time.
Right, because we'd be coming from a place of understanding.
Exactly.
Wow, that's a powerful vision.
It is, and it makes you realize that personal growth isn't just about getting ahead.
It's about creating a better world.
For everyone, and Pereira reminds us that this journey, it's not about reaching some perfect state.
It's ongoing.
It's about continuous learning, growth, adaptation.
Because setbacks are going to happen, challenges are part of life.
But they can also be opportunities for transformation.
So it's all about how we view those challenges.
Exactly. Instead of feeling failure, we can embrace it as part of the process.
And that's where resilience comes in.
Pereira wants us to ask ourselves, what are the boulders we're clinging to?
The things that are holding us back.
Those outdated beliefs, those fear-driven behaviors.
So it's like a personal inventory, right? Am I stuck in that Sisyphus Syndrome loop?
Pushing the wrong boulder uphill.
Or am I ready to let go, try something new, find a path that really feels right?
And letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means having the courage to reassess, to learn.
To choose a direction that's authentic, meaningful.
Exactly.
This has been such a mind-blowing deep dive.
I know, right?
We've gone way beyond those typical success cliches.
We've gotten real about what it takes to thrive.
In a world that's, well, pretty complex.
And it all comes back to those key factors.
Effort, context, starting point, emotional intelligence.
And that it's a journey, not a destination.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Marinus Pereira's work,
We hope you've gained some valuable insights.
and that you'll continue to explore these ideas, challenge your own assumptions about success,
Ask yourself, what does success truly mean to you?
and what steps can you take starting today to create a life that feels fulfilling, meaningful?
We'll be back soon with more fascinating deep dives, so stay tuned.
Thanks for joining us.